Equidox. Bionics. Accessible PDF conversion. Reach everyone.
This video includes a presentation read almost entirely by the speaker.
Equidox training. Lists. Choose your document from the Documents view, and click on the page you wish to remediate from the document detail. Here we see our page of simple lists.
A list is highlighted in red and labeled List Zone. Each item in the list is in its own highlighted box. The outside of the list is highlighted green and labeled List Zone Margin must cover List Delineator, bullets.
For correctly tagged lists, each list has a zone, and each list item contained within it also has a zone. Equidox will auto-tag most lists. Draw or select the zone around the list items, and choose List from the Zone Type drop-down box, under the Zone tab. Be sure the left-hand margin is covering the list delineator, in this case a dash. You will need to be sure that the list is correctly marked as unordered, or ordered. The selected list in this case is unordered. Then choose the Detect button. When we enlarge the document using the Zoom Out button, we can see that Equidox has auto-tagged the list item within the list. We can do the same for the next list. Instead of using the drop-down box, you can also change the zone to a list by selecting it and using the L key. Be careful that the list zone does not overlap any other zones except those for the list items. Overlapping other zones will cause the list to be improperly tagged. Again, we choose the Detect button, and Equidox auto-tags the list items within the list zone. Select the zone, and press L to change the zone to a list, making sure the left-hand margin covers the list delineators, in this case, bullets. Note here that Equidox has auto-tagged the list items, but now the list zone doesn't include all of the items. You can correct this by selecting the list zone, and extending it to fit completely around all of the list items. You can also use the zone position fields to make these adjustments.
The user adjusts the size of the red highlighted list using the cursor.
The next list is an ordered list using numbers. When you select the zone, you will need to change the list from the default setting of unordered to ordered. Then select the type of ordering for your list from the drop-down box, and press Detect. Check that the list zone surrounds all of the list items. This list is ordered using lowercase letters. Note also that if necessary, you can start at a number other than 1. Simply change the number in the Start At field. You will use numbers to indicate where to start, even if the list is ordered using letters. Here you can see that the list items, when auto-tagged, do not properly include the contents. To correct this, move the list zone away from the list item zones so that you can adjust them. Adjust the zones, making sure they do not overlap. They also should not include the list delineators, only the list contents. Then replace the list zone over the list items, and adjust it to fit around all of the list item zones. Press Save this layout, and preview the page. Notice that not all the lists and list items are in the correct order. This is because we have added and moved zones. Go back to the document detail. Under the Page tab, and choose the Reorder button.
A notification appears and reads, Zones were reordered.
Now, a preview shows the lists and their contents in the correct order. Let's examine a multi-level list, or a nested list. As with a simple list, each list item must be tagged with its own zone. Each level of the nested list will contain its own list zone. In order for the list tags to be properly nested, each level of zones must be part of the previous level's list item. Select the list items, create a list zone around them, and then make sure the list item to which the subsidiary list zone belongs fully surrounds the nested list zone.
The user adjusts the highlighted boxes to fully cover nested lists with the list item boxes.
It's helpful to know that any text zone contained within a list zone will function as a list item. Be sure the list item zones do not overlap, as this will create errors. Use the preview function to check your work, and don't forget to reorder the zones after your nested list tags are created. This page contains both simple and nested lists. When you are creating the list zone, remember to position the list zone margin over the list delineators, whether they are ordered or unordered, bullets, numbers or letters. Once you've pressed the Detect button, check that all the list items zones are contained fully within the list zone. Be sure to choose the correct item from the Ordered drop-down box, and change the Started field if needed. If the Detect button fails to auto-detect the list items, adjust your list zone so that the list delineators are within the left-hand margin. Then press Detect again. For nested lists, you can create your list zones, from largest to smallest.
The user creates a list zone for the list with a nested list inside.
Move aside the list zone and the list item zone to allow you to create a nested list zone beneath. Choose the correct delineator and press Detect. Then replace first the list item zone, making sure the subordinate list zone is fully surrounded, and that it does not contain the list delineator. Do not allow the list item zones to overlap. Then replace the primary list zone.
The user moves the larger list zone back up.
Don't forget to reorder the zones from the Page tab, once you have completed your nested list. This will ensure that they appear correctly to a screen reader, and in your preview.
The user selects the Preview button. The lists are circled and are correct.
For a more complex nested list, the same procedures apply. Create your list zones, choose the delineators, and press Detect.
The user creates larger and then smaller list zone boxes and moves them aside to make nested list zone boxes.
Then move them aside to allow you to create the nested lists beneath. This can involve several layers of lists and list items. It's important to be sure the list items fully surround any nested lists or contents, without including the list delineators, and that the list zone fully surrounds all of the list items that should be contained.
The user resizes boxes to prevent overlap.
Sometimes it can be challenging to prevent the zones from overlapping. Work your way from one nested list to the next until you are able to replace the primary list zone and reorder all the zones.
With the largest list zone box placed over all of the list, the user selects the Reorder button.
Then Preview.
The Preview document displays how the list will look in the final document.
For more information about using Equidox, visit our website at www.equidox.co or see the user guide.
The video ends.